Hello and welcome to this tutorial. I would like to share with you how I'm going to try and paint this, make a tutorial out of it. I've never painted a tower before, and so this is going to be fun. I'm going to be using only Procreate brushes today, and yeah, let's dive right into it. So I'm going to start with the hard airbrush, why not? Actually, let us start with the drawing, sketching the HB pencil from Procreate with a darker color. I am just going to paint this, try and just get the basic structure with this sketch. I'm using an A4 canvas that I've halved, so I've used the pressed A4 on Procreate, and then I've basically cut it in half. And excuse my scratchy voice, I don't know why I get a bit what would you call it? A sore throat at the minute. Okay, so while I'm painting or sketching these stairs in, important part maybe to mention is to reflect the roundness of the tower as it sort of goes down here, and sort of mimic that on the outside here a little bit with the steps wall. And then just let's add a couple of steps just for our reference in a moment. Then we've got these two rocks here, and we'll have a big door. I'll set the door back a little bit, so I've got that stone wall surrounding first, like here, this part. And then we've got the door here. Let's give it some wooden slats and a base. I think I'm going to have to correct my stairs, setting it back just a little bit. Oops, wrong brush. Let us use the let's use the studio pen to correct things with the eraser, like that. And I'm just going to make sure that this is a little wider over here, sort of opening up a little bit to the viewer. Okay, so we've got a little bit of a base here, and then I will go ahead and sort of add I'd like the steps to sort of go into this part a little bit more, so that we've got a little bit of a step above, towards the door as well. And then, copying the reference a little bit here with the bush and some pebbles on the outside. Okay, I'll take the whole layer here with my moving tool, and with the uniform mover, I'm just going to make it a little bit smaller and set it so that it's more visible when I paint for you guys. And then at the top, we've got like a slight outcropping here. And these, what would you call them? These sort of things that support the wall at the top. I'll just put in the basic sort of this part, and then I'll go and add a sort of transitioning piece. But since this isn't the top, I'm sort of just going to add that little bit here. Following the shape that you want to have with the tower. So sort of, like this. Oh, hello. Like this and that, and then here it's sort of straight, basically. So let's continue with this part, just adding this little boundary. I already know that I'm going to have a hard time finding the correct words in this tutorial, and very basic, the top part. And we'll make sure something sits on top. I've never painted anything like this before. I mean, like a tower like this, especially with this sort of reference. And here I'm just going to make sure, oops, hello. I'm going to make sure that there is a bit of an overhanging here as well. I really don't like when Procreate does this, damn it. Okay, so we've got this area here, and they are sort of square, maybe a little bit of perspective by adding that sort of part where it goes inside, and we'll add the same here. So yeah, just sort of trying to reflect a little bit of perspective. But as you can see, the AI picture, you know, the AI picture isn't very accurate, as they usually aren't. So we're just gonna try our best to make it more normal, I suppose. Okay, so yeah, we sort of want to make sure this looks a little bit three-dimensional, like this. Okay, this is just a sketch. It's good to get an idea of where to put things, and also what I want to add on the sketches here, the sort of shape, the round shape that we need to reflect with the bricks. Although I don't want to continue using the sketch after I've color blocked in, which will be the next step, I still want to make sure that this part is as helpful as possible to filling in the shape later. Even now, I feel like I'm not really reflecting the roundness that much. I'm not sure if this is going to be enough, but there are tools to help us shape it a little bit, so I'll show you that in a second. I mean, the bricks aren't even themselves, so I don't know if we need to be 100% with this. Especially if you're doing this for fun as well, then I hope that you can take the pressure off yourself. Oh, okay, and here this sort of needs to, this part here needs to reflect the, you know, the roundness that we've done in the other areas. I don't like that the HB brush goes like this. I'd rather it was thin all the time, but I'm sure there's another pencil there I haven't tried out yet, and I haven't realized that exists. There we go. Just tidying up the shape a little bit, and here, pretty sure I wanted to get this outcropping in. I'm gonna add a slight flare to the outcropping here, just like a little, this little bit here. That just gives it a little bit more detail. And when it comes to these, I'm just going to make sure the top part here is wider than the bottom part. I think that should be fine. Alright, then we should probably add a little bit of a directional guide up here as well. Just a couple of things like this. We won't need to put in the brick shape because I'm going to show you how I do that now. Let me just show you the tool that I meant for correcting whether or not this is shapely enough. When you go into this little bit here for the adjustments, you can choose liquefy, and then you can choose how you want to liquefy what you've done. And I usually do push, especially when I'm trying to correct like the shape of something. So you can adjust the size, but in essence it just allows you to do something like that, you know, making it a bit more round, if that is what you want. I think I'm gonna leave it as it is because I'm alright with this. I forgot the window, of course, so I'll add the window as well. Up here somewhere. And of course it has a nice stone border. I'll make it a little bit bigger, just so the stone border can be nice and wide. Like that, and then give it some vertical, diagonal brush strokes. That. And then in here, obviously, we've got a window. Oops. Alright, this is not very helpful, is it, this part? Let's get that right. So just something like this. And 1, 2 like that. I haven't really done that very right, so I'll go into the moving selection lasso tool. I've selected it, and now with the distort button I'm going to move these two in the middle a little bit more so they are straight, coinciding with the straightness of the outside of the tower. And yeah, I think, well, you know, in this reference here, a lot of things don't make any sense. That's AI. So yeah, with the tower, I think what I'd like to do is sort of create a little bit of a vine area, like you know, vines climbing up the side, and I'd like to add a little bit of a green bushy area here and there. Maybe we can add some flowers or not, if you prefer it to be a little bit more fierce. I think that's okay. So yeah, we've done our sketch. What's that, like 15 minutes? I hope I'm not gonna be as take as long for this as usual. So a new layer beneath the sketch layer, and I've lowered the opacity of the sketch layer down. Now I'm going to choose to select the shape on the new layer with the lasso and the freehand tool, and I'll just sort of go in and basically try and get the tower with this outline. I'm sure I've got a few places already where I've made a few mistakes, but we can adjust that after, so don't worry if you don't get it all in well. I'm just gonna do this with this last step here. We can place the other stuff on top, and then I want to choose the hard airbrush, and with a gray color that leans into the blue tones, I'm gonna go ahead and just paint this in. This is a very dark color, but that's right, because we can build up from that. So if you want to go ahead now with the studio pen and correct the shapes where you have missed them, the studio pen is really nice for details in my opinion. I was a major fan of this one when I started out. And where you go for, you know, too much, just erase that part. Keeping these edges sharp. Funny enough, I just realized I've given this end one a different shape to the rest of these things, so I'm just going to try and adjust that, basically making it less square. Hopefully that will look similar. Alright, so now on this one I want to create a new layer, make it a clipping layer mask, and I'm going to use the studio pen for this part. I will basically color pick the base and then choose a lighter color and start adding in some blotches for bricks basically, or cobblestones, and just add that to the whole structure, following the guidelines that you've set yourself. You can, with the spacing in between, you can leave more space or less space. In the reference you can see that there's quite a bit of space between some, and then what I also try and do is here, for example, sort of set them slightly further along in the next row, so that there is a little bit of a so it makes sense with how the bricks or the stones were sort of laid. Okay, so let's have a look at the top part. So here what they do is they've got one row with longer stones, and then they've got another separation which I don't have included. I don't think I will include that either, so I'll just stick to this row with the single longer ones sort of set in here. Okay, and I also want to add some up here, still set apart slightly. You can have some funny shapes in there, smaller ones, larger ones, and then when you go around the corner, try and sort of reflect that it goes around the corner with these stones, so so they sort of match together, these areas, a little bit. Following sort of the shape, if you see what I mean. Okay, I'll also fill out the broader stones here. That's sort of the head of the support, I think you could say, maybe. And then also on the top side of these ledges. Okay, I won't be adding the stones that go on here on this layer, but I'll add these ones that are part of the window frame, because the way we're going to be painting these in, it sort of makes sense to keep that stuff separate a little bit. Just sort of adding these bricks here around the window in a similar shape, the U shape. And also here on the windowsill, and the same for the door. That's a big window because I think it is bigger than the door. But that's good. We want a big window, lots of light in the middle. This doesn't seem like the most friendly tower. But I'm sure if we give it some flowers, it will look a lot friendlier. Yeah, I think we can leave that on this layer, and then I want to create another clipping mask layer. I'll select basically the layer of the tower and then create plus. It automatically goes into a clipping mask layer. I'll choose a slightly darker color now, but still lighter than the base, as you can see, but one that sort of just looks a little bit different to the one that we added for the other ones, for the other bricks, and just go in and add your bricks again. Trying to set them apart again as well, as much as you can. Like here it won't always be visible, but as we continue the pattern throughout the rest of the tower, that will be like a natural conclusion that it's the same up there for the people looking at it. You don't have to shape all of them like little clouds or still like little pebbles. You can make them into different shapes as well, sort of going into some of these nooks and stuff. It is like with the reference picture, there are so many different shapes of rocks and stuff, so another thing that you don't have to worry about getting all the same. I don't know how much pressure people put on themselves or how much you put on yourself with painting and learning things. I know when I started digital painting, I put a lot of pressure on myself. I got very frustrated very quickly when I didn't get any results, and I would frequently give up paintings because of it. Overall, obviously, I've persevered, otherwise I wouldn't be in this position, but and I still have a lot to learn, but I feel a lot more relaxed now than I did about it 3 or 4 years ago. Alright, so now I want to create another layer. I'll do it again beneath all the others as a clipping layer mask, and with a slightly dark color again. I think I'd like to... oh, I think darker doesn't work. I'll stick with a brighter one. So I will start adding the tops of my steps in here, also with the studio pen, sort of following the guidance I have as my sketch. At this point, I don't even know if we need the reference anymore that much, but it's quite helpful for the texture and the shadow and light later on, I think. I think it's so funny when AI creators, they add their little watermarks everywhere as if they haven't used AI to create it, but okay. That is probably a hot topic I shouldn't be talking about on here. Okay, I'll go and select the top layer of my clipping layer masks, where I've added the bricks for the windows and for the top, and here I'm going to add the bricks for my wall going around the steps. Just adding a couple of bricks so it sort of looks like it's standing out a bit. And also let's grab a slightly darker color. And on a new layer that isn't the clipping layer mask on the top, I will hide the sketch as well and sort of actually grab the color of the base and then go from there and select a slightly darker one, then go in and just add your wall's boundary basically, just to help you see where you've been, where you're going, like that, sort of on the outside and then on this side as well. And then create another layer below that that isn't a clipping mask layer, color pick the base layer and just create like a little wall here that is sort of the support. I see I've painted over some of the bricks, so let's pull this one here. Oh, that isn't a good idea. It is not a clipping layer mask. Pull it below the rest, basically. Oh, hello. Like that. Yeah, I think it might be a good idea to add the rest of the outside as well. So with a lighter color, I'm just gonna go and add the outside. And since it's on its own layer, don't worry about painting over other areas. I'm just going to include the rocks in this, and then I'm gonna pull this here below every other layer. Also with the studio pen, I'll go in and the eraser and just take away some of these like areas where I've overpainted, like that. That is fine. And now we can hide the sketch again and let's go into texturing and all that, or should we maybe add the doors first? I think we'll add the doors first, so unhide the sketch layer again, create a new clipping mask layer. I've put that one under all the other pebbles and stuff, and we'll color pick the base color down here and then move it to the red-orange hue for a natural brown, but we're going to choose a slightly darker one to make it stand out against the rest a little bit more. Just go in and add that down here. And I'm going to be using the same brown for these window bars. I'm holding this here down longer when I paint these lines so that it automatically creates a very straight line. Straight indeed. And then for these ones, perhaps it would be easier if we just added a drawing guide. Just enable that. You can edit the drawing guide, and then for me I'm going to select a smaller grid size so I can see sort of where a good distance would be between the bars and sort of making them follow along. You know what, I feel like those bars in the middle are way too strong, so I'm just gonna go ahead and erase mine. I don't like that they are so thick in the middle and then very thin outside, but I'll keep the drawing guide enabled for a minute, and on the same layer as the door, I will go back in and try to add these. I'll also move this one over a little bit like that. And then add the bars. This window also has like a wooden frame, so I'm going to try and add that in here as well. Like that. I'm not sure about if I should have put these bars so far apart from each other, but he's done, so it will just have to work with it. That will be fine. On the very top I will then just add a new layer and add the vines. I'll disable the drawing guide as well, and then I'll add the vines that I've added here, or the tree that is sort of growing up, but it could be like a wisteria, I guess. Also with the same brown color, and the studio pen. Maybe stretch it over a little bit. Now disabling the reference, there's one more thing missing, and that is the steps over here. So I'll go onto the layer with the boundary here in the wall, just making sure it's not on the same layer as the other one, and I'll grab the lighter color and just add that on the top bit here. I'll disable the sketch layer actually, because that will just help me see a little bit better what I'm doing. So we're basically adding the top of the step before it goes down, and therefore I will also... that would be a good idea if it wasn't on the top layer. So let us go down into the main bit, the base, and delete the steps accordingly. And also I want to add the base for this step here. The bit that goes down, basically. And then adding the last bit of this wall and also the boundary. Then there is one more thing here. We need to adjust the length of the wall support, and there you have the base. So that's good going. I think we should continue with the texturing of these rocks. So for that, let's hide the vines first, and basically you select the layer you want to work on and deselect clipping layer mask, and then create a new clipping layer mask onto that one specifically. So now when we paint everything, it's going to happen on these rocks. And I want to grab the stucco brush from Procreate, of course. Select the color that you've already got as your stone, and then I would choose a different hue. I'd like to have a bit more warm, so orange, and push it up a little bit brighter and slightly more saturated, and just give this a whirl, see how it feels. I'm pressing it down hard, pressing it down light. I'm going to add my main warmth, I think, on this side, because I'd like to have the light coming from the left as well, similarly as in the reference. Oops. Doesn't need to be perfect everywhere. It's actually better if you've got a little bit of space in between, some more than others. Then what I'm going to do next is I'm going to choose a darker color in that same hue, so in that same orange tone. And I'm also going to add that to the mixture. The vines are obviously going to be on this side as well, so we'll add the shadow for that later. Then I want to go back into the blue tones and add some blue shadow in that same darkness. Just adding that to the top where it will be a little bit darker. And also on this side here, under the window, next to the door, where more shadow will be falling. And then here at the bottom, where the steps sort of go around, and maybe just a little bit throughout, but that's it, that's all. Maybe just a bit down here, where the rocks will sort of hide this part a little bit. And then I'd like to create another clipping layer mask and choose a lighter color, much lighter. So we just select what we had as a base where you can find it, and then go into a much brighter bit here. I will go back and choose a bit more of a yellow tone this time instead of orange, because we're moving more towards the light with this color. And basically add that, try out how much you'd like to add. And then I want to add that in blue as well. Maybe make the brush size smaller to be able to control it better, and just add some more brightness to some of these rocks, stones. Not every single one, but sort of in patches. Like here is a little patch that's brighter, and here. And I'll add one over here as well. Just a little bit more light on these guys. Alright, I don't think that's looking too bad. Even up here you can add a little bit blue light, and throughout these rocks as well, for a bit more variety. I'm happy with how that looks, so I'm going to merge both of those together with the actual base, and then I'll move on to these two, where the layer basically where I have the windows and the support. So I'll grab a similar color. I'll start with the darker this time of the brown one that we had on the other rocks. Just add that first on these two, and then the lighter one, but this time we'll go even lighter. And just make sure to add that especially to the edges, like this. And over here as well, more on this side than on the other one, because again the light is coming over this side. And then we'll choose the blue, go a little bit more saturated. So I basically chose the light blue that we had earlier, and then a bit more saturated and darker, and add that to these guys, and also this one down here, and then a darker one, much darker. No, I think adding more of the light is probably the way forward, and then adding the dark around. But add the dark a little bit anyhow, a little bit of shadow and contrast in the actual stone. I'll add a little bit more of that light back into these guys here. And then for the support, we've also got these ones as more light supports, and these. I'm adding both the lighter and the darker color to the bottom thing, and then go lighter and more yellow for the top again. Like that. Actually, let's go darker for these ones, for the support. That looks a little bit better. And also, I would like to add blue to that mix for the bottom half. These ones also get dark and light. Dark on the top. And I forgot we've got the top bit here as well. Wow. Okay, so let us go in with the darker reddish brown and add that to the top part as well. And then a lighter one with more yellow in some localized areas that reflect the light more so, where the stones are lighter already. Here, this is sort of the last row before the top, so I'm just going to give that a little bit more light. And in blue as well. Get that blue mixed in with the brown here in the middle. And I'll add a darker blue as well in some areas. Especially, I'd like to add more at the top for these little separate hats. And then they can get a little bit more light over here. There's quite a difference between these supports and these ones, and I want to make sure that the support isn't quite as strong. The contrast isn't quite as strong. So I'll add some brighter areas here with blue. There we go, so that is okay. I'm gonna merge that down as well, and then I'd like to add some more texture to the door and the window. So I've got a clipping layer mask to that one, and let us get so basically my idea for the door was color pick the base, grab a darker color, and sort of create the door frame first, making it more visible on one side, because we're looking at it sort of diagonally. We'll see one side more than the other. In the base, I'm going to add this sort of darker frame. And then going back to the clipping layer mask, actually let's duplicate the clipping layer mask and move it with the uniform 2 taps or so, so it's a bit thicker without having to paint the whole thing again. I've merged those together again, and I'd like to merge those together and then get a brighter color that's a bit more saturated for this boundary. Fill it in for the door frame, and try not to paint over your door frame that you just made. And go down to the base if you can see areas that you've not added any color to. It's basically not sticking. And then go back into the frame, the clipping layer mask. I've created a second one and then created drawing guide, or enable it. Then I will go ahead and add these, but this time if you press on your layer and you enable drawing assist, it will automatically create lines that are in accordance with your drawing guide. So you just have to sort of make sure you are placing them with enough distance and stuff. And then I will just go in below that one and just correct this side here. Alright, press drawing assist again so it's disabled, and take away the drawing guide. I think that's alright, so I'm going to merge that down here, and I also want to create another clipping mask and do sort of a similar thing with this part. We still have that darker color, and all I'm going to do now is sort of go in and shade this area where it gets a bit darker. And then along these here, I'm going to try and give them a shadow without painting in the whole shape. A bit like that. I'd also... No, I think that's alright, although, yeah, let's go into the base, or rather create another layer under the base. I want to add another sort of frame for this, but with the same dark color, and just make sure I'm not painting over the actual frame that I've painted in earlier, because I like the shape, and I don't know if I could get it right again without a lot of faff. So there we are, that is shaded basically, and I'm gonna merge these down together with the base, and then also with this background. So there we go. I'm gonna create a clipping layer mask to the actual tower base and go in and add some brighter blue, very desaturated, so far on the left here, and I'm gonna add the caps of these, leaving a little line between this and the actual stones to sort of signify the base as well. Like that. Here I'm going to use this on one side and then use a slightly darker one for the rest of this one, like this, and I'll use an even darker one for the one at the very end so that they look nice and separate. And in the actual base I'll go in with this studio pen as an eraser and just make sure that they are looking like they are separate. And round that edge off a little bit because they aren't quite that intense with the others. And then go back into the clipping layer mask, and here I'm going to use this part again for this side, and then a slightly darker one again on this side. Go back into the base. I'd like to tidy up this shape. This one here. Although I think I need to add this color a little bit more along here. And then erase basically this part. There, that looks a bit better. Sometimes I can't explain to myself what I should do next. But that looks right, and then I'll add the same darker color here on the edge and here. I want to just merge that down and then go in and have a look at the bricks on this layer at the top. Just want to cut this brick off basically, so it looks like these are separate as well, and cut the brick off here and here. Alright, well, you might be thinking, what is happening, where's all the shadow and stuff? Well, we're gonna add that now. So basically in between the top and the bottom brick layer, I'm going to add my first overlay layer. And on here with the hard airbrush, I'll choose a darker blue color for the shadow and just add that right below here and on the side next to the window there. Maybe add some extra strong shadow right next to these what do you call them again? This one anyways, like that, and right at the top. Also a little bit of shadow here, so you know it looks like it's actually sticking out, and maybe more intense shadow right next to the bricks here. And I'll do the same down here, just add some shadow. I want to smudge that out a little bit, that is very intense. And also here, some shadow, also smudge that out with the hard airbrush. And here, why not, just a little bit. Then I want to add this, use the stucco brush on the same layer and choose that warm brown. Just add some texture across it. You could create this on another layer again, another overlay layer. I'm just gonna go for it like this. Maybe get some up there as well. Okay. And I'd like to get a really bright yellow. Okay, let's make it more orange. Get the hard airbrush again and add this over here. And then smudge it out very gently with the stucco brush, because we've got a lot on that layer now. A bit like that. Maybe add a little bit of that bright light on the edge of the stones over here. And I want to add some darker blue brick with the stucco brush on the overlay layer, just here. You can choose how strong you'd like that to be. Yeah, I think that looks alright, so I'm happy with that one. We're gonna have to leave this because we can't merge this together with anything as it's a different layer. I'm gonna merge together this layer with the steps and the layer with the other bricks, and I'll create a new overlay layer over that. Similar sort of thing. I'm gonna add the darker brick. Well, let's add the shading with the airbrush first. I'll choose that dark blue again first and just add the boundary to these guys and slightly under their hats, and then also here in between. Then with the stucco brush, I'll go in and add that darker shading to the rocks. And also to these boundaries. I think we're gonna have to do a clipping layer mask. No, let's not do that. But it doesn't quite work out as I hoped. It's alright. Let's grab that like really light orange. Get that in on this side. And then on the top here. And smudge that out a bit with the stucco brush as well, to retain some of that texture but not all of it. And get that dark blue back in here at the top. You can smudge that out a little bit with the hard airbrush, like that. And now with the stucco brush, we want to add a little bit of different lighting to the edges. So with the blue-gray first, I'm gonna add some darker shadow here and here, making sure that it is really not coming over, smudging it back where you want the boundary to be. Get that on the edge here, the edge here, and here. This here is very dark, so let's just erase a little bit with the stucco brush and keep some of it there. And then choose a lighter color and add that on the side that is reflecting the sun more. Here we can choose the more orange one again. Alright, and then for the, we'll create another overlay layer and basically grab the chalk brush from Procreate and add in some cobblestones. Oh, maybe we'll make a normal layout of that first. Normal. So we'll add in some, let's use the studio pen as well. We'll add in some cobblestones that are sort of lying flat on the side, so they'll be a little bit more long and oval. Just add them here. A bit like that, and we'll add some here. Maybe getting too next to each other sometimes. Like that. And we can add some down here as well. Maybe grab a slightly lighter color for down here because it's not quite as visible otherwise. Alright, and then let's grab the color, pick the color of the steps, and then choose a slightly lighter color than that. and just add in some cobblestones there. Before I add in the next cobblestones, I'm going to erase the ones that are sort of overlapping here. Here and here. And then grab that again in a slightly lighter color and just add your cobblestones. Like that, and also here. These ones should go around, so if you want to direct them a little bit more diagonally, then that would work well. Like that. For these, I'm going to create another clipping layer mask on top of that and go in with a stucco brush. Color pick the ones you want to work on, so I've chosen the lighter ones first, and then choose a lighter color that is more saturated, so a little bit like that, and just create a bit of an overlay over these. Watch out, because you're gonna be painting on these ones as well, so keep your brush size small. Maybe add more light to the ones that are directly on the step. Surface like here, but again, not everywhere if you can manage. And then on these ones down here, I'm just going to choose an even brighter one and add the color down here. Now for the ones below, I'd like to choose a slightly darker one and just sort of add that to these ones. Here I also want to add the same in a dark brown, because they will be reflecting off some of that brighter warm light, but since they are in the shadow, that won't be so visible. Just the warmth will come through a little bit. Like this. And if you want to make them fall back into the stone a bit more, grab the base colors I just did and just add that to some of the edges of these stones. Now I want to go into the base, basically create a new layer over the bases, and I want to choose the base color that I have here. I'll choose that one in brown, grab a darker color and add some, oops, I'm guessing this is not on the same layer, so it's here. So add that to the steps. And an even darker one in blue to these edges here. Maybe not quite that dark. Just dark enough to make it visible that these are still two tiers. And also on the ground here, I'll grab a darker blue color first. like this, and then a darker orange color, maybe slightly lighter, and just add that as well. You can then go in and just erase what you did on the outside here if you want to. And I'm going to smudge out what I did on this side. That is fine for me. I will just merge these two together, and let's add some texture on the actual base for the step. So create a new layer over the base of the step, and with a stucco brush, color pick the base and choose a slightly darker color. Just go in and add some fun details like this, some texture, maybe keeping it darker on the side towards the tower and where the wall comes in subsequently. This. I'm adding in some more shadow here as well. This is all going to be on the base, so beneath those stones that we added, just adding some darker blue. Lighter blue, maybe in brown over here. Keeping it darker than the stones ideally. Okay, and then I've got that done for the base. I'll merge that down, and on the steps I will also add a lighter color than the base step in blue, because it's in the shadow, and then where it comes into the light you can grab that orange, red, brown. Then grab a darker blue, just give the ones at the top a little bit of an edge. Like that. Merge down if you're happy with it. I'll also do that on the wall. So here I'll grab the base and I'll add a lighter color. I'll also grab a darker color, especially up here, and just give these rocks a little bit more shadow in between each other with the stucco brush. Then grab the chalk brush and add some more blue, lighter tones to the ones at the top here, perhaps even brighter and less saturated. Just where the tops of these rocks are. You can even add some stones that you didn't add earlier. And then I'm going to merge that down. And then we just are missing these stones here, so I'll grab the stucco brush again, grab that color and go for blue, darker blues. And then again cover this one with a more bright blue. the wall edge here is very dark, very light. So what I want to do is increase the contrast. So I'll add that to the base. Here I want to color pick the base and add a lot darker with the stucco brush to give it some texture as well. And thereby these rocks will stand out even more. Like this, and maybe go a bit more bright and blue at the top so it merges in with the rest. And then what we can do is we'll go back to the rocks, grab that lighter blue and add this in at the top and at the edges. This and here. Then I'll create another clipping layer mask and add a brown color that is brighter on these rocks. And just add a darker one as well for a little bit of a difference here. This is the same layer as these cobblestones, so I'm just going to add that darker color with the stucco brush over here as well. Merge that down if you're happy. Now there are only 3-4 things missing really. Obviously this one needs some leaves and we need to add those rocks. So for these rocks, I'm just going to enable the sketch layer, create a new layer underneath the sketch layer, and with the chalk brush of Procreate, I'm just going to color pick the rock medium color. So thinking about this, we want to have bright light at the top really, and slightly less bright light here, a bit more blue in between as well, sort of creating a bit of a transition here, and then a darker blue on this edge, for example, creating sort of 3 visible edges. Here, this one, you can grab a slightly darker reddish color that is desaturated and add that to this edge that isn't directly in any light, but the warmth is reflected from the top. So let's add some more warmth here and a little bit brighter as well, like this. And then for this rock up here, I'm going to choose a slightly darker color than the other one for this edge. Make it more blue again towards this part. And then I want to create a brighter edge here. Maybe have this stick over a bit more, and then this here, sort of a desaturated red. There we go, a bit of a shape to it. Give this a little bit of shading as well with a darker blue. Sort of adding the sides to this rock. Here you can also add the shading for the steps a little bit more, you know, sort of the edges. And then we've got this step here, don't we? So just gonna draw that boundary. Make sure that this here sort of extends a bit more visibly, and just sort of shape out the steps a bit better. little bit like that. And I'm also going to add that other side here. Although actually I didn't have a rock there, so that's not bad. I'm going to create this here, make this slightly darker though, because it's sort of falling off the edge, isn't it? The shadow here. Alright, so let's add the green stuff, hide the sketch again. On the top layer, on a new one, I'm going in with the Inca brush from Procreate and grab sort of the color of these bricks that is brighter and choose my green from there. Sort of a medium green at the moment. Just start adding some leaves and see where you want to extend them to, following sort of the brown shaped vines, brown vines. You can choose a slightly different green if you prefer to see it a bit better, but I'll be adding the shadow to this in a moment, so it isn't too important. I already know what kind of shape this brush is making, so for me that's sort of intuitive, but if you'd want a slightly darker one or brighter, you'd probably see it a little bit better as well. Making sure not to cover the brown parts of the vine too much, because they give everything quite a bit of shape. And I also want to add a bush on this side. I'll choose a slightly darker color for this one. Like that. Alright, so let us, when you go to the bottom, you can see the background layer color, and I'll just choose a slightly more gray one, like that. So now we can add a lot more light and see it. So we've added the basic green. I want to go and create a layer beneath that green that we've just done. Color pick the green for the vines here, and then choose a darker one that is more saturated. Oh, perhaps you're even darker, and see what that looks like. Just add that a little bit to behind these vine leaves that you've added. Yeah, I don't know if I should scratch that. Never mind, let's just add some of these now and just sort of try to enhance your shape instead of, sort of creating a new one. Like that, and now go back to the main vine layer, select the vines without the bush, and I just want to increase the saturation here, and also you can change the hue. So for me, if I go to the left it gets warmer, to the right it gets colder. I want to go a bit warmer, so 47%, so like 3-4% over, and I've got the saturation up but not too much. And you can also adjust your brightness level or darkness if you want, but I want to leave it at 50%. And then you can go on and create a clipping mask layer to that, using under the painting, I think, using the the old brush, go ahead and select the color that you've got for this part, and select a warmer one that's more vibrant, more saturated, like that, and start adding this. This is quite a large shape that I've got here as my brush, so it adds quite a bit. Maybe choose an even brighter color and you can see even more difference. I try not to add it too much on these leaves over here, but more on the ones on the left. Maybe go even brighter. See what that looks like? Yeah, I quite like that. I think I'm going with that, so I'll merge that down, and then basically going back to the Inca brush, I want to go ahead and, you know, add some darker leaves again. So I've chosen one of the darker colors on the leaf, and I just go back in and add that on top on the same layer. Maybe even go a bit brighter and add some highlights. I'll add some darker green as well. Especially over here, I want to go more into the blue direction again. And I want to add some more desaturated blue leaves and see what that looks like. I think that's quite pretty. Add that as a sort of extension here, as a sort of highlight. And then for this bush here, tap the color that is your base, choose a darker one, create a clipping layer mask again, and with the old brush, just add some of that. I'm gonna merge that down, and on a new layer on top, I will use a much brighter color and just add that on top. See what that looks like. Then with the Inca brush, I'll choose a more saturated, slightly darker color and create some more dense leaves. The texture, the old brush is a bit less dense. So you might even want to go in and just sort of take some of that away again if it's too much. I'll zoom out because it's a bit easier to see the big picture. Add some more, blue highlights, so to say. Grab a darker color, even darker, and add some proper dark shading. I'll grab a middle color again and sort of try and combine these bits. I'll add a slightly bluer shade here, like that. Add some smaller ones, smaller details in blue-green. Maybe even darker again over here, adding some shadow as I go. And here. I'm pretty sure my phone storage will be screaming in a second. Alright, and now what I want to do with the vines, merge all the green stuff together, and then I want to lasso tool the vines again, copy and paste this time, so now you've got 2 of those basically, and move this one below the original vine layer, then go into adjustments, make it darker, and move it slightly to the side. And then what I'd like to do is use the stucco brush and tap out this darkness. Oops. Not too much so it gets overwhelming, but so that it creates a sort of darkness on the tower as like a natural shadow. I'll go ahead and erase some of the ones that aren't on the tower, like this, and go into the eraser with the stucco brush and just, you know, sort of tap very lightly. So you're just erasing some parts of the bits that you did, and that will leave a really nice texture. Go back and do adjustments. See if you want to turn the brightness down. And the hue, make it more blue, like that. And now you can see again, maybe you need to tap out a bit more up here, like that, and erase a little bit more, like that. That's a quick way to just add some darkness. There we go, I've decided to take a little bit of that away, but that's alright. Let's save our progress. Okay, there are still some areas that look pretty flat, so what I'd like to do is, on the very top, I want to add another overlay layer. Now with the hard airbrush again, I want to go and basically add some more intense shading. I'm going to grab a dark blue that's very desaturated first and go in on the left again here and sort of into the window this time, making that very dark. Sorry, it just went back on itself. Just add some darkness in there. How about we add some brown, because we can add some light in there in a moment and that will look a little bit friendlier. And then down here I also want to add some dark brown on the actual door. Not overall, and I'll go with the hard airbrush and smudge out what I've just done because I want it to look smoother, but also I don't want that to be everywhere. Oops. Maybe even with blue to really contrast that warm light that will come over, and then add some more blue here. That's very intense. I'll grab the stucco brush and smudge this out here like that, and I'll use a bright orange, also desaturated, and gently add that on the side. And up here, making sure that I'm going to add some darker patches again with the dark brown as well. Giving this here a dark brown shadow. And go back to blue down here. Then switch back to brown. And overlay this part here with the rock and the steps. Then over here I want to go back to a darker red before I switch into blue. Like that. It's a very intense shadow at the moment. Then I'll go in with the eraser in the stucco brush, tap out some of that, just a little bit, to make the transition a bit smoother. Maybe even just use the airbrush to see what you can do with that shadow. Maybe even just erase a little bit over here. Give this here a bit more of a brighter edge to make it look more 3D. And the wall, but keep those steps dark. And maybe just add a little bit more darkness here to really enhance that part. I'll smudge it out again with the stucco brush. And I'll also smudge out the stuff I've added down here, the shadow. And here. I'd like to add in a little bit more shadow here, but I think I'll make that brown. Smudge it out again with the stucco brush. Like that. Smudging it out. Yeah, I quite like that. I feel like we've added a bunch of areas where I've added or gone over with the overlay. There we go. I don't know if you can see what I'm seeing, but I will go in and just make sure this door isn't as not diagonal, but it's not really in the right shape. Just gonna add this here. So it's sticking a little bit more to the left. And a darker boundary here as well. But I will do that on the overlay here. There we go. Okay, and now for the highlights. So I would like to add an add layer and set my light. I'm going to make my light nice and warm. First of all, I want to add some in here, creating a little bit of a different shape in there. The light is undefined in there. And then I want to create some larger light sources, like say up here and around here, where the light is really coming onto the edge, reaching all the way onto this part. And these rocks, of course, hitting some edges more than others. Then I'll have a nice one here, a nice light area. And of course, over here on the steps. I also want to have a little bit over here. And then go back down to the overlay layer and select a really vibrant orange. I'm going to add that to the light in the window here. And also onto the door, but I'll make that darker and a little bit desaturated. So it looks like a nice full door. There you go. and also like a more intense shadow in between here, but I'll go with the dark brown this time. Then on the light area again, oh actually let's add a little bit of overlay here. And with the chalk, erase the overlay on the actual stones. Then only the dark bit is behind the stones. Also grab a darker blue on the overlay and just add that to the edges of these tops. Yeah, so I'm not sure about those tops, but that's alright. We could add some, you know, green at the top really. Then I'll add a new layer at the very top and just add all my details. So I'll grab the Inca brush again, just tap anywhere in the green and grab a really nice bright color and give these wonderful vines some highlights. Careful not to overdo it, although I don't know if you would find my general light style overdone. When you add too much light and you sort of go over the shadow, that's sort of when it doesn't go that well. At least I've noticed that with my paintings. I try not to do that. And I'll also grab a regular dark green, maybe not quite that dark, and just add that back in as a nice bit of contrast. Slightly darker as well. I did say about flowers, so I will be adding a couple of, you know, very, very little detailed wisteria. I'll go on a new layer for that, grab a nice warm purple, and with the Inca brush, actually let's go a little bit more pink. I'll add a couple of hanging flowers. Like that. A little bit paler in the background. A little bit stronger over here. I'm only going to add a few. This tutorial is already long enough as it is. But I'd add a second color to that, slightly darker, to just give them a little bit of three-dimensionality. If you have more time, I would suggest even a third color that is brighter and warmer and more saturated maybe. But yeah, I want to go and onto the add layer, add these beautiful little lights that you know from my art style probably. Especially in the window, we want to add a bit more light, so I'm just going to add these here. Sort of around the tower, and then with the medium hard airbrush, why not go into really saturated color and add a strong light source from within the window. That's not very strong. I'll try and go in between the bars. Maybe I should have thought about that and added another layer for the bars. Yeah, actually, if you just add this here like that and then you just sort of smudge it out just slightly like this. Whoops, I wanted to smudge it out, hello. Then you can grab this layer where you've got the bars, copy and paste the bars, and run with it to the very top. That might not have worked as well as I thought. I'm going to adjust the brightness, make it a little bit darker. And then I'm gonna hide it a bit. And what I want to do is basically erase this part outside. I just want the bars. I'm just using the chalk brush to erase, but I don't know if it makes any difference, to be honest. Just outside, turn up that opacity again of the layer and see what it looks like. I think that's pretty good. I'll go back into the add layer now, and with the stucco brush, really go for it. Like, just look how pretty that light is. That is maybe a bit much, like that. And obviously go in and just diffuse that a little bit by smudging it out with the hard airbrush. If I had more time, I would definitely get a lot of detailing to the bricks and that done, because I feel like that is lacking. I'll create another overlay layer at the top, grab a nice dark red, give this here some warmth. Oh, red please. That's a lot of warmth. I'll smudge it out and then see how it goes. How's that? That's right, isn't it? Maybe add a little bit of white here, like that. Smudge that out a bit. I feel like we need to set the grid. Well, I would like to go onto the adjustment for the grid and just select the saturation and intensify it. So it looks like there's some warm light coming out. Alright, and obviously there is a doorknob missing, so let's add that quickly. I'll start with the black and then add like a shiny bit on top. And I'll pull that beneath an add layer so that I can then, on the add layer, add a highlight with the stucco brush. Oh, that's a big highlight. Like this, more like. And maybe even just take away some of that shine from the bottom. That. Alright, this is the basic tower. I think that was okay. I will add some more flowers and just render it out a bit more, but I think this tutorial is long enough. Thank you so much for watching, and I hope you had fun. If you want to, go ahead and just add, I can't help myself, just add a little bit more warmth to that door on the overlay layer with a red. Maybe that's too intense. Just add a darker color on top. Smudge it out. Oh my goodness, I want to change so many things, but this is it now. This is what we're going for. I hope you had fun, and please let me know what you think and how it turned out, and if you have time, add some detailing up here with the add layer and the stucco brush, and just add a little bit of white detailing like this. Oh, I will see you on the other side. Have a nice day, and hopefully see you again in the next one. I will get better at the tutorials. I'll try. Anyways, check out my Patreon if you want to have weekly and monthly tutorials. I'll upload a lot over there at the minute. As a freelance illustrator, I'm trying to get some income, so Patreon is a bit more viable than YouTube at the minute, but I'm going to be putting in more hours on here as well. But there will be extra love on that platform. actually I changed my mind. I've decided I want to add a couple more things. With the chalk brush mainly, I'm going to create a new layer at the very top, and then you go and just sort of color pick where you want to work and choose a lighter color to create that top bit that is sticking out more, fading into the bottom. Here obviously it needs to be bright, much brighter. Then grabbing a darker color and sort of, enhancing that separation here. But it's not dark enough to be a full shadow or like a break in the whole thing. It's just go towards blue here. It's just the edge. I'll also grab a slightly darker color. Actually, I'll stick with this lighter color and create this sort of edge in here, moving towards red and brown as I go to the left. And the same at the top, although I'd like to grab much lighter color to top all of this off. And then moving towards the blue over here. Grabbing that in between color for the rocks and sort of just edging out some of these. Moving more towards blue again over here. And sort of adding that boundary in underneath that brighter. No, I don't think I'm going to do that. I'll grab the dark bit here and just make sure these rocks are nicely separated, even with all the light coming in. Just adding a little bit of that boundary back, especially in the lighter areas. Contrast becomes more important because it just defines the shape a lot more. And then here I'd like to add the sort of edge that I haven't added manually yet. Here, for example. And underneath this here again. Moving towards blue again over here. I'll give all of this here a much brighter over sketch because it's sort of in the distance compared to this one. And this here also has more blue over sketch, so it's also a bit more of a different side, or visible as a different side. Then at the top here, I would love to go in and shade a bit more, but I'm just going to do a bit of sketch shading here and here. I'm going to try and keep these amendments to like 10 minutes if I can. And for this one in the background, I'll go lighter and try and set that a bit more back with this. All right. So now I want to go and grab a slightly darker color, but not dark enough to be part of the background. Perhaps like this. And just create that edge, making sure it sticks out. Maybe redefining some of these in between spaces, especially in the dark area. Like this. I'll try and match the shapes coming down like that, and the medium shape like this. Grab a darker shape to this one, maybe even keep it blue, and here it's blue, And then we'll be moving towards a darker color here. I want to overall add a little bit of a darker boundary here. So these are more visible as actual stones. And then more blue over here. Then grabbing here these guys, I'll give them a brighter edge towards the light. And also the frame, I'd like that to be a lot warmer, brighter. Like this. That makes a bit more sense for me anyways. And then enhancing the boundary again here between these guys, so it doesn't all just fade away. I've just color picked one of those boundaries. Then if I go down to the vine, I'd like to duplicate that, and the bottom one I'd like to go and make that really dark and move it one over and go and Gaussian blur this slightly by 1%, so it's just not a sharp edge. That'll just give it that little bit of shadow. It looks very 2D because you've got that shadow everywhere. If you're committed, go and erase that. And if you have more time, I would go ahead and, like, you know, to the top one add really bright warm colors as the reflection of the light. That will make a big difference. She said as she started doing it. 2 minutes left. Maybe even on these ones, just give this a bit more of a warmer edge on that normal top layer again. And then I'll go and grab the Inca brush and just give this bad boy a couple of highlights here. Maybe grab one of these beautiful flowers, give it a slightly warmer tint here, and create a second color to that. Maybe even brighter over here. Okay, and then I want to grab the chalk brush again on that same normal layer. I want to add a slight, edge at the top of the stones. I would like that to be sort of in that brighter color of where we are. I mean, that's sort of orange here, but it's blue with the rest. You could make a mixture of it all, reflecting perhaps also the light that comes from here. Obviously, the more contrast there is, the less natural it'll look unless you really go in and make that transition with other colors. I'd like to grab that darker color here and just make sure that these look like well-defined edge bricks, stones in the wall, and not like one big piece. That often happens when adding the add textures on top. The add light textures, I mean. Maybe just here giving some of these a little bit more definition. And also I'd like to give them a bit of darker texture. They are at the bottom after all. I also would like to, with the chalk brush, just enhance the edging between these guys here. I'm going very rough because of the time, but take your time with this. Maybe go a bit darker as you go to the bottom. Sort of forgotten that these ones were here. Going back into more brown and less dark areas here. Even less dark, especially where the light is there. Otherwise you'll have to make sure that these all fit in again with other colors. Something like that. If I had more time, I'd probably delete a little bit of the leaves on the vine so that you can see more of the brickwork over there, because it's quite pretty. And then I'd like to add some texture on here. Brighter, I see. Like that. And perhaps also with the blue, like this. We're doing the same again. Anyways, I think you get the gist. I would add a lot more light and shadow wherever you can, really detailing it all. This is the chalk brush I'm using right now. I'm just going to sort of give it a zigzag texture, as I would probably start texturing a bookshelf, sort of to signify the wooden slats that make it up with all their uneven parts. Darken the edge of the door. Perhaps give this little one a little second color and make this part a bit warmer. I would also go in down here, if you have the time and the patience, to just give these stones their due shape, like this. These guys deserve a bit more highlights. Maybe a couple of reflections on the steps where the beautiful sparkling lights are. Wow, that looks a lot better than it did 10, 15, 17 minutes ago. That is just the beginning of the detailing that I would suggest, and you know, continuing with these steps down here. Maybe not that much contrast, unless you plan on adding some transitioning colors, of course. Maybe some highlights on these pebbles. Alright, I will seriously stop now, otherwise we will continue forever, and yeah, we don't want that, do we? I would just add a couple more of these as well. This is all on the same layer. I wouldn't do that if I was you. I would probably do this here on a new layer, because I'm sure that I would want to continue shading some of this, and yeah, just as a fair warning. I'm making a mistake. Anyways, I hope you enjoy that. Alright, see you soon. Bye.